Hi guys, it's James. Appreciate it's been a little while, but this is me brutally re-rating my life 6 months on. It's actually been longer than that. But before I dive into the 7 pillars, how I break down my life and the different categories where I'm going to rate myself, it's probably worth starting where we left off with the last video, which was my objectives and what I'd set out to accomplish over this time period. So without further ado, let's get into it. So to start, I'll quickly recap some of the objectives that I set out and the timeframes, and then we can get into whether or not I actually hit those. So for my financial situation, which is one of the pillars, I wanted to grow my savings from 32k to 40k by the end of November. I wanted to buy my first house in the same time frame as well. For my career, the second pillar, I wanted to select a side hustle and build the skills within that side hustle, and then also land my first client by the end of August. And honestly, spoiler alert, it's quite funny looking back at these because where I got to and my priorities actually changed massively over this period. And then another one of the pillars, my physical health, I'd rated it a 4 out of 10 at the time, and then I said I would create a video, which was coming soon. So for my financial situation, yes, I did meet my goal of getting to 40k by November 2025 and actually far surpassed that. More details to come. My plan in terms of buying a house, so that fell through because of a large career decision that I made, and that meant that I wouldn't actually have the pay slips accessible in order to be able to buy a house. So that wasn't possible. In terms of deciding what my side hustle is and building the skills, yes, I did do that. And finally, in terms of landing my first client, I'm still on the hunt for that, but I do feel like I'm moving in the right direction now and it's going to come soon. So, overall, a few successes and fails. I guess landing my first client is the biggest failure in my eyes. But as I mentioned, my objectives have changed massively over this period. So, stay tuned to see what's actually changed and what my new goals are later on in this video. So my financial situation has actually changed quite a bit since the last time that we spoke. In terms of money in the bank, admittedly, that's come down quite significantly. I'm only at about 1k-ish now, and I'll explain why that's happened when I go into the career phase. The Help to Buy ISA, not much to report there, a negligible increase, just a small increase as a result of the interest rate that you get within that account. And then stock slash equity. So that's quite an interesting one because last time we spoke, it was at about 15.8k, and stocks have been performing really well over the last few years. And I'm now actually about the 20k mark from those investments. Now, I do take that with a pinch of salt because the disclaimer that they always give you about investments, they can go up as well as down. And I would say the last few years of growth have been hugely, hugely positive, but I'm not sure if the fundamentals, which is basically what's driving underlying wise the growth of the stock market, will last much longer. I think the fundamentals are actually a bit weaker. And so I expect my the value of my stock investments to go down over the next year or two. Having said that, it's really difficult to time the market, so I'm not in any position where I'll be withdrawing any funds from my current stock investments. But as you'll see in the next section, I do actually have cash from a separate source that I'm waiting for an opportune time to deploy when the stock market goes down, basically. So now we're at the point where this is actually the biggest change in my financial situation that I've experienced. And as you may recall, I've been with my company for 5 years, and there was a share plan that was put in place, but you had to be with the company for 3 years in order to access the funds that you deployed in said share plan. So that's not something that I'd originally included. in my last update, and that's because I didn't actually have access to the funds at that point. But now I do. And to cut a long story short, my company has done exceptionally well over the last 3 years. And as a result, the amount of money that I invested into the company, so it's £250 a month, and I've done that for 3 years across the board. So total that is 9k that I invested in my company shares. They are now worth around the 30k mark, which is absolutely crazy. I'm so happy that they've got to that point, and it's given me a huge rationale to stay with my company as long as I did. Because from a financial standpoint, you can think about the 30k in isolation, but, and this is an additional fortune that I experienced, the way that tax is set up in the UK, it's quite high relative to a lot of other countries. And in order to obtain 30k net, which you can just access and spend, you'd probably need to earn about £60,000, and then it'd be 30k after about a 50% tax. But the way that these shares are structured is in a way where you can, trying to think if it's, so tax avoidance is legal, tax evasion is illegal. The way the shares are structured are in a way that you can avoid tax if you're smart about where you deploy it, how you disinvest it. So because 20k of the amount is wrapped in a tax-free ISA wrapper, and an ISA is an individual savings allowance, that means I can access that 20k and disinvest, and not pay tax. And then on top of that, the other 10k, so that isn't protected by the ISA wrapper, because the limit that you can put into an ISA in an individual year is 20k. So the other 10k, the UK government also allows you to disinvest up to 3k of capital gains profits without being taxed. So what that means is, let's say your shares are worth 2k and then they go up to 5k. If you were to disinvest the whole of the 5k, you wouldn't be taxed, because that 3k improvement, that is the allowance. So what I've done is I've disinvested about 10k from the stocks and shares ISA, and then 5k from the holding that was outside the ISA. So that leaves me with about 15,000 that's still invested in the company I'm working for, and 15k cash that I've got ready to deploy if and when, in my mind, the stock market goes down. So that takes my overall total to a crazy 63k. And I know there'll be some of you out there watching who are absolutely balling, and that's not a lot of money. But for me, it's huge. I can use that to pay for a house deposit, and it's also given me massive flexibility for the next pillar, which is my career. I nearly forgot to give my rating. So, of course, the jump from 33k to 63k is massive as a proportional increase. Having said that, in the long run, I want to be a multi-millionaire, and I'm very far off that mark. So I am giving my financial situation a current rating of 3 as an improvement from 2 out of 10 last time we spoke. So onto my career, and to be frank, this has been the area where I've experienced the biggest amount of change over that period. And that's why I found it laughable looking back at some of the objectives and what I was thinking at the time versus where I'm at now. So as part of my career, I wanted to build the skills and pick a particular side hustle and kind of explore that. And I did definitely run with that. what I ended up selecting was AI automation. And if you're interested as to how I came to that decision, you can find that information in the previous video that I recorded, and I will link somewhere on the screen. So yeah, decided to do that, and the more I learnt about it, the more I enjoyed it, and the more I realized how powerful it is. There's a lot of chat and noise ultimately about AI at the minute, but even though the skills that I'm learning are probably on a more basic level, and there is so much you can learn, it's a bit overwhelming at points. I've already found that I've been able to design solutions to problems that exist out there. And the way I've managed to work that out is to look at what AI content and what's working out there and see if I can recreate it, which I was able to do. So, for instance, there was a system I built and it was designed for first roofers and then plumbers, in where if they missed a call, because that happens, a lot of these people are calling in emergencies, or the roofer or plumber is at a job or under a sink and they can't pick up the phone. I built an automated text back system where the system will instantly text the customer, basically have a back and forth with them, collect the relevant information like what job they needed, what their location was, when they're available, etc. And if it was the kind of job that either of the service providers, the roofer or the plumber, actually does, then it could book in an appropriate time where they could go out and see them. And the ultimate outcome that I was trying to solve there was to stop both of those services losing jobs from missing a call. And to give a bit more detail, if you're looking for a plumber and you can't get in touch, especially if you need them urgently, if they have no way of getting back to you quickly, your natural reaction is just to call the next person, and that initial plumber loses the job, whereas my system was aiming to solve that. Sorry about that. That's probably giving you guys some nightmares. Yeah, so there's that. And then I have been applying to a lot of jobs on Upwork, and Upwork is a freelancing platform. Um, and the way it works is there'll be people online who are looking for a freelancer and basically given a job description like, we need you to do X. And I was building solutions just to see whether I could solve X. And I was able to. And like I said, I have not like huge AI knowledge. I don't have a coding background either. I've just looked online and learned that way. And that's how I've kind of built up my skills. But I do feel confident in what I can do. And I feel like it's only going to get more useful. So, anyway, that was me rambling a bit. But for my actual career, ended up taking 6 months off work, a sabbatical leave. And in that period, I really wanted to double down on AI and learning more and getting my first client, etc. Now, holding my hands up right now, I'm still not at a point where I have my first client, which has been very disappointing, I'll be honest. And I expect it to be a lot further by now. I'm now 5 months through my sabbatical, and I've tried a lot. I started off with, and I've made a lot of beginner mistakes along the way. I started off with cold emailing, then I started off with cold calling. After that, cold calling, it sucks. I have such respect for the people out there that do it. Um, and then I tried LinkedIn outreach, posting in Facebook communities. But that is a classic beginner trap in itself, where I've kind of hopped from outreach method to outreach method and not really stuck at one. But ultimately, despite the fact that I have acquired, in my eyes, so much skill in terms of AI and automation, the issue that I'm running into is I don't have a strong enough single offer. Instead of trying to offer something to everyone, You know, if you're, there's a saying, it's like if you're um, everything to everyone, you're nothing to no one, or something along those lines. And not having a concrete offer has really hindered my progress because ultimately I'm trying to convince a stranger to give me an opportunity to do some work for them. And of course, they don't really know my background either. It requires a lot of trust. Now, if I don't even have a strong offer that I'm pushing, there's no way I'm going to be able to convince someone to do that. The reason that's holding me back is, you know, plumbers, roofers, all those kind of industries. I don't know much about them. I haven't worked in any of those industries, and neither have people that I know in my immediate circle. So there I am thinking of problems to solve and then trying to push that out when realistically the ideal situation it's the other way around. You speak to the businesses first and then you get to understand their pain points and where their inefficiencies are. Then you design the solution. Um, so cold email, LinkedIn, all that kind of other stuff hasn't been the best because it's been so easy for businesses to ignore me. Cold calling was actually great in that department because, you know, even if they weren't interested, if I could keep them on the phone for a minute, 2 minutes, I ended up learning so much about their business, my competition, what they actually want to see, what they don't want to see, and that helped me reposition a bit. But I did end up giving up on cold calling. I mean, A, maybe just easy way out. I didn't like it, but B, plumbers and roofers, at least in the UK, I felt were quite resistant to AI and tech. And on top of that, what I was trying to offer, especially to plumbers, who was the second group I targeted, the very disheartening thing was a lot of them would just pick up the phone and then I'd say my initial offer and they'd be like, oh, we had this call like last week, or, you know, oh, we heard this already. What I was trying to offer has become extremely saturated in such a short space of time. And Facebook communities can only attest to that because me posting in them, I'm seeing how many other people are trying to push the same thing. And that was quite disheartening. And that made me move away from trying to cold call plumbers and roofers. On top of that, I also had the realization that for scalability, if I were to get to, let's say, 5k pounds, Great British pounds per month, which equates to something like 6,000 plus dollars a month, I would probably need about 15 to 20 to 25 plumbers in order to do that or achieve that. Um, so it's very difficult to scale what I was trying to sell. So that was me rambling a bit, but that's kind of where I'm at on AI. Having said that, I'm not giving up. I feel like I can do it, and I do have that self belief, and I'll keep trying new things to try and get in front of people first, then try and solve their problems rather than the other way round. For the first time, even though I hate it, I am going to a local networking event. So this will just be small businesses in my area, but I won't be going there to give the hard sell and say, you know, I've got this product, I've got that product. My ideal outcome from that is I speak to these businesses, they tell me some of the inefficiencies or even one that they're experiencing or something that they would like to happen faster with their process, whether that be getting back to their customers faster from the phone or website inquiries, etc. And then I offer a solution. But ultimately, I'm learning about their pains. So that's in 2 days, and I'm looking forward to that, and it'll be a bit of change. But here is where it gets interesting. So I said I was doubling down in terms of taking that 5 to 6 month period off for sabbatical leave to focus on AI. Of course, it hasn't worked out yet, but I still maintain the self belief. And I feel a lot more fulfilled doing this AI thing. And I know in the long run, the things that I want to achieve, not just from a monetary perspective, because there's other things as well, which I won't go to at this point because there's no point sharing all these dreams just yet, because they're so far away. But staying in my current job doesn't allow me to do that. So I thought about the pros and the cons of staying versus going, and I have actually decided to triple down and I will be resigning from my job later this week as well. So, yeah, obviously a huge decision. Yeah, so it's been the one and only corporate company that I've been with, but this is where it ties into my financial situation. I am a firm believer that wherever possible, people should chase their dreams, especially from a work perspective. Um, I can completely understand the rationale for doing a 9 to 5, but I personally struggle with the how I actually feel about a job, because I know that if I'm passionate about something, I can fully apply myself and excel. And I think that has held me back in terms of how much knowledge I would expect to have acquired after 5 years with my company versus where I'm at. And that's not to say I'm I've done bad at my company. I was promoted twice, and I do feel like my colleagues hold me in high regard. And that's not saying that arrogantly, that's just saying that honestly. Um, but how I feel about it personally is I would expect to have done more. I would say the progression that I've experienced has probably been on the average side. And, even the mentor that I worked with at work, so he left the company. He's actually the same age as me and he joined 1 year prior. But he was really interested in what he was doing and he genuinely was exceptional at it. But I think the fact that he was so interested in it really contributed to that. Um, and it showed a gap in how strongly I was feeling about work. So I do believe it's the right decision for me to walk away. And of course, the big blessing is my financial situation has given me the flexibility to walk away without worrying how am I going to pay rent, how am I going to live the next month to month. I'm aware that with the amount that I've been able to save, worst comes to worst, I can spend probably 2 to 3 years um, without working a job and earning an income. Now, of course, I'm not going to just go gallivanting for the next 2 to 3 years, not at all, because ultimately I know the longer that I'm out of a job, the less appealing it will be for me if I apply to another job and they ask me about, why you've got such a big gap on your employment history. Having said that, I do have a lot of self belief in myself. And with this AI thing, I think my skills will only compound over time. And even though I don't have my first client, I can feel the skills that I've learned, the ups and the downs that I've experienced over the period. I'm improving every single day. And I do think it's a matter of time before I succeed. So I am willing to bet on myself, albeit it's a risk conscious bet because I'm not quitting with, no income to last me. On top of that, there's a 3 month notice period that I'll have to serve with work. So I'll have a conversation with them. It could be that I serve the rest of this final month of my sabbatical and then I work 2 more months. But the plus side is that's 2 more months of income that I'll receive, and that will just help keep me afloat for even a little bit longer. So, yeah, this is probably the biggest one for me and the biggest change of direction. It's nerve-wracking, but when I go on to my mental health, especially, I think having clarity as to the future and where I'm focusing my efforts has actually done wonders. And yeah, it's going to help me prioritize. And I wish myself luck. But yeah, I still think I can do it. So, with that being said, my career rating, so it was 4 out of 10 before, and now I am going to give it a 2. 2 because I'll be leaving my job. The reason I haven't taken it all the way down to 1 is if we're considering my career and where I'm at over the course of um, my life, yes, I have no job, but unemployed doesn't mean I'm starting from square one. If I were to apply again, I do have 5 years of experience in a high flying financial services firm, and 2 promotions to go off the back of that, and some strong projects that I've worked on over those years. So that should help me somewhat when applying to a new job versus, a fresh graduate who doesn't have that 5 years of experience. And that's the rationale for my 2 out of 10. Okay, so my physical health is another good one. So this was me back in June 2025, and that's when we took the last video. Now I am here. So this is what, 9 months on? But admittedly, I probably stopped going consistently to the gym towards the end of summer. Um, but I have been going consistently for the last 5 months. Now, what's difficult about these 2 pictures is they're taken in completely different lighting, and that's unfortunately because I left my old gym and joined the new one. So I can't actually replicate the photo that I took here. What I will say is, and this is the power of lighting, I am definitely in better shape in this picture. Um, yes, you can see more definition, especially in my shoulders and chest area, and you can't see it as well in this lighting. But I know at the minute my chest is actually more defined than it ever has been. So I've actually improved. This is actually somehow an improvement from here. Likewise, if you look at this area here, I was quite a bit more overweight. I probably was maybe higher 70, so like 74 kilograms here. Now I'm about 70. So while I have been pumping the weights a lot more frequently than I was before, I'm probably going 4 times a week now, but sometimes five. I've also started running, so that's been really new for me because I've suffered a lot of injuries over the years, which has prevented my ability to be able to run. I remember when we were in lockdown, everyone was going on this mad 5K hype and everyone was posting their times on Strava, on Insta. And I was like, man, people are putting all kinds of times out there. I want to run a 5K, but I want the first time I run a 5K to be absolutely rapid. I want it to be like 21 or 22. And I started building myself up to that point. And yeah, then I got injured. Shock. Whereas this time I've built myself up a lot slower. I've started doing physio on my legs every evening to basically prime them for when I am running. I've only been running maybe once a fortnight, which is not a lot, but for me it's a big improvement. And yeah, it's been my fourth run, um, and I did a 5K for my first ever time since school. which was like 10 years ago this year. Did my first ever 5K on a treadmill and I did it in 25 minutes. So that's a solid start. I didn't think 25 minutes was too bad, albeit a treadmill is a lot easier to run than the road, I'm sure. But I do think if I'm running at my fastest at the minute, injury free, I can probably do high 23s. But let's see. I haven't run that yet. If I get around to running this week, depends on how my legs feel, then I'm going to try and go for 24 and then just keep going down after that. But yeah, so I've started actually doing cardio. Previously, I was only doing weights. And then really recently, when I say really recently, over the last week or so, I have actually been focusing on my diet a lot more. Previously, I just kind of ate whatever, as long as it was high protein. I wasn't fussed, but I'd have a lot of takeaways. I'd have a lot of carbs, loads of chips. I love six wings and chips, which is a very South London thing. But yeah, I've been cutting down on my carbs, been more careful about what I eat, and then I've been upping my protein as well. So I'm expecting over the next 3 to 4 months to hopefully be in the best shape that I've ever been in. And I can feel I'm improving at the minute. Um, and yeah, we'll do another side by side comparison and I can tell you guys where, or show you guys where I'm at. But I'm looking forward to that one very much. So in terms of how I'd rate myself on the gym, previously I was a 4 and now I would say I am up to a 5, the midway point. So watch this space. All right, next is my mental health, and it has been very up and down over this period, especially towards the start of my sabbatical. I want to say October, November time after I returned from holiday. I actually ended up going on a heap of holidays, which stopped my career progress. I think I went on 5 maybe over this like 7 month period. Maybe 6 actually. But anyway, that was me getting sidetracked. Coming back and starting this sabbatical and really knuckling down on the AI stuff, I ended up going quite overboard with it, and it was consuming most of my life. I basically wasn't doing much outside of AI stuff, and because I was continuing to fail, no matter what outreach method I tried, whether it was cold email, cold calling, trying to message people on LinkedIn, build some kind of social media profile, it was really disheartening. And I was finding my emotional state was tied to how successful I felt I was doing in AI, which is great because it shows that I care. But it's not great when you're not doing well with work. So that was tough. And having to continue to bounce back, experience rejection after rejection, yeah, um, it was hard. Having said that, my resilience did pull me through, and seeing all the success stories online, the number of other people that started in similar positions to me, kept me motivated. And on top of that, after I was failing, I have given myself an opportunity to look back and look at where I've come and what I've learned, and the amount of skills, not necessarily AI skills, but business skills I feel like I've acquired in a short space of time. You know, whether that's talking to people, whether that's doing outreach, whether it's producing content and, you know, staying in the public eye a bit more to get my name out there. That has been a really, um, I've really enjoyed it. It's challenged me in the right way and I feel more fulfilled. And now that I know the sabbatical period is coming to an end and I generally have given it a really good shot at making it work, I had it set out that by the end of the sabbatical, I'd have like a solid business running, already be in a position where I've replaced my income. Of course, that isn't the case. But as I was saying before, there was so much uncertainty I had in my mind before, whereas now I do just feel like it's a matter of time before I break through. Um, and knowing that I'm going back to work, but I have my answer at least for the remainder of this year, which is to really quit and give this AI thing a proper shot. It's given me the clarity that I need to um, just be a lot more mentally sound. And as a result, I have had a more sociable month in February. January, I didn't see anyone for the entire month. So doing dry Jan was pretty easy. But yeah, February, I've basically done like one thing every weekend, whether that's like a Saturday or Friday, just one. But that's considerably more socializing than I was doing before. So, my friend got engaged. He had an engagement party. I went to a music event. My other friend, he had a christening for his baby, and then there was like a social gathering after that. Um, and yeah, it's been really nice to see my friends and catch up with them, and it's made me a lot more mentally positive. Now, I will say, when I try and explain what I'm doing to my friends, a lot of them don't really have, yeah, it doesn't really resonate with the vast majority of my friends, but that's okay because I appreciate what I'm doing is quite unconventional and I know it's the right decision for me, even if they don't. Um, so yeah, mental health wise, previously I was a six, but in this current state, I would actually give myself a 7 out of 10. Right, always the juicy one. Love life. What are we saying? Well, long story short, I spent Valentine's with my cat, so that should tell you what my love life is saying. No, it was actually sad. So that friend that had the engagement drinks, I went to go get him a card, and that was the week prior to Valentine's Day. I completely forgot that Valentine's Day was even coming up. What reminded me is when I went to go and get that card, there were Valentine's cards that were there, and I was like, oh snap, yeah, Valentine's is next week, and I am doing nothing. But there is a lot more context, actually. Love life has been quite an interesting one for me over the past 8 months. So, shortly after the time of recording my last video, I went to a music event and I met a lovely someone there. Um, and yeah, we spent most of the night together, we exchanged details, and then we went on a date a few weeks after because I went on holiday for my birthday. And we got on really well and we had loads of fun. She was a vibe, she was attractive. Um, yeah, and our humors really aligned. And we ended up dating for 6 months, I think, between July and December. And that did help me and my mental health quite a bit. When I was getting really bogged down with work, she was a nice distraction from it. And we went on dates, we hung out quite a bit. We did a lot of chilling, I'll be honest. Um, but that was cool. But it got to December, and we'd been meaning to have a conversation for a long time about, where is this going? The classic question. And yeah, she spoke first and then I spoke, but we basically landed on the fact that even though we were having so much fun, it's definitely one of the most fun partners I've had. We knew that there were other factors at hand, but ultimately, more than anything, we just knew that we weren't the right person for each other, despite the fact that like we really enjoyed um, each other's company. And I do think part of the reason that contributed to that outcome was the fact that I was holding back a lot. over that period. And yeah, that largely ties into other things on this list. Work, I said to her when we first started dating that work is my priority at the minute because she too wasn't looking for anything serious. And we, I basically said, um, yeah, because I think she changed her mind at the start whether she wanted to actually go on that first date. And because she was worried about, like, was I going to put a lot of pressure on her to get into something pretty soon after she came out of something else. And I basically told her not to worry, work is my priority, and we don't have to see each other every week. I'm just quite happy for us to see each other and chill together when we had the time. Um, but that didn't really change for me. Work continued to be my priority throughout the entirety of that 6 months. And yes, we did see each other, but we probably averaged seeing each other less than once a week. Somewhat due to she had a very busy schedule because she worked a lot of night shifts, which is, as an aside, if you do night shifts, that is crazy. Well, okay, if you do night shifts is one thing. If you do night shifts and then day shifts in the same week, I don't know how you're functioning because I would just lie on the floor and die. But yeah, our schedules, it was quite hard for us to meet up. I was very firm on the fact that I only really wanted to meet up on weekends. And as a result, even though we dated for 6 months, we probably didn't get as close in deeper terms as we could have done. Um, but yeah, it was a bittersweet ending because I think the toughest thing that I find with relationships ending is not really the loss of romance aspect. It is more the loss of friendship aspect. Because it's, of course, someone that you get to know really well in a short space of time. And then because of the involvement of romance, you go from knowing them really well to basically not speaking to them. So that was kind of where it was bittersweet. But ultimately, we both knew it was the right decision for each other. So it actually was a very mature conversation and mature ending to that. And yeah, we haven't spoken since. And it's been what, 2, 3 months now? But yeah, I've deleted Instagram. So I haven't seen any stories from her. Obviously, we haven't messaged. I've got no idea how she's doing, but I wish her well and I hope she's found her mans. But for me, that keeps me at a big ol' 1 out of 10. Right, so next is my family, and um, yeah, there hasn't been material changes for me in this department here. Being on the sabbatical has meant that I've been at home way longer than I would normally. Having said that, I spend the large majority of it working, and my brother works in a different room, and then my mum can be downstairs. Um, so it hasn't really changed how much I see my family in the day, but the vibes and the relationship that we all have collectively together, we're kind of appreciating that everyone's doing their hustle, but we still have like uh, meals together, we'll watch TV together, and yeah, I feel very positive about how things are going with them. What I would give in this one is a 6, and I believe that's the score that I gave last time. The reason it's not higher is even though I feel like the relationship is good, a large rationale as to why I didn't give a higher rating was because I wanted to do a lot more things for my family, but I haven't really got into a position where I've been able to do them yet. So, yeah, that's why I'm staying at a 6. And then finally is my Friends. So, Friends was actually the highest rating that I gave in the last video, which was 8 out of 10. Really strong on that front. I, like my mental health, experienced a lot of up and down over this last 6, 7, 8 months. Um, and that was largely due to me not being as available, which meant I'd gone from seeing my friends more frequently to, um, seeing them every month or every 2 months when I would previously see them like every 2, 3 weeks. And that was especially challenging because I have friends that kind of expected more from me, which I do completely understand their side. And I think I would have done more stuff socially, but because of what I was experiencing mentally and how locked in I was with work, it was hard for me to socialize um, and actually enjoy it. I could go to these things and like put on a face, but ultimately I always felt guilty about how I could be doing more work at that point, which I appreciate was is pretty unhealthy. But even at the time I was thinking that, but it was something that I couldn't snap myself out of. Um, and what made that challenging especially is like I'd go to all these things but not actually be present and not be able to fully enjoy something, fully like get on with the vibes. Like I remember I went to a Halloween party and that was quite like a big out of the blue social event for me. Um, and I just was not up for it at all. Like I found talking to people really hard, and I tried my best to enjoy it, but yeah, I couldn't. Um, Now that I'm where I'm at and I have the clarity and I had a more sociable month of February, I've also explained to other people exactly um how I've been feeling, where I think I'm at, what I think I need to do from a work perspective, why it's important to me. And even though it might not be something that they necessarily can like resonate with, on the flip side, it's given them a better understanding as to the way that I'm thinking about things. And I think that's actually helped my friendships a lot. And February was a lot more of a positive um, month for me socially. And I feel like I got to catch up with, a good proportion of all my close friends. And that's been nice. I probably won't see them for a little while again, but I think they understand me a bit more now. Having said that, I'm analyzing this from across the entirety of the last 6 to 8 months, and like I said, it has been up and down. So while I still feel like the relationship that I have with my friends is good, I ultimately feel like if my career wasn't an issue and I was all sorted on that front, I would inherently see my friends a lot more. So the fact that I'm seeing them less than I ideally would like to see them, to me, has to be a cause for some kind of downgrade in my score out of 10. So while it was 8 before, I would now give it a 6. So not bad, but yeah, definitely work I can do on that front. So I thought it'd be useful to do a side by side comparison of where I felt like I was at June versus where I feel like I'm at now in March 2026. And for the likes of family, love life, there hasn't been any change. But as I mentioned, a few areas I feel like I've actually weakened on over that period. So that's primarily friends, which has dropped from 8 to 6, my career, and the uncertainty that the decision I've made has come with has made it drop from 4 to 2. And the negative has more than offset some of the positive increases I've experienced in my financial situation and my physical health and mental health. So overall, my total back in June 2025 across the heptagon was 31. Now I feel like it's dropped very marginally to 30, but with a focus particularly on my career and secondarily physical health, I'm not entirely surprised that it's changed in this manner. And the small drop I feel like is okay because it's put me on the path to really expand the heptagon in years to come. And I won't go into too much detail because you'll see that in future videos. So overall, I'm pretty comfortable with how the heptagon has changed, and I'm excited to see what's next. So with my old objectives, I would say that one thing I was over the period was consistently inconsistent, and that's really hindered my ability to achieve some of the goals. But now I feel like I'm hitting more consistent output on a regular basis. I guess that is what consistency means. But on top of that, it's quite easy to spend a lot of hours doing the wrong things where it isn't focused, it isn't targeted. Whereas now I feel a lot more focused in my efforts, and even if I have lower inputs, I can feel that it's likely to yield greater outputs than before. So, with that in mind, here are some of the goals that I have over the next few months in 2026. So, starting with my career, if it allows me. So, I still want to land my first client, but because I'm doing the right things, my target is end of April for that. So, 1 month's time. In terms of building revenue, so this is a bit of an arbitrary number, but I have seen online, and because I am doing the right things now, I do think it's feasible, albeit challenging. So my target in the next 3 months is to be at a point where I'm generating £5,000 a month. So challenging, but I'm up for it. My physical health. So this isn't one that I mentioned in much detail, but I have been running, and currently my 5 kilometer pace is 25 minutes, which I know is nothing fast, but given the injuries that I've had, it's quite a good solid starting point. Having said that, by May, I would like to get that down to 23 minutes for 5K. And at that point, I think that's when I'm going to start trying to play football again, which I really miss, and I used to play loads back in the day. So it'd be great if I can hit that milestone. And then finally, for my physical health, I rated it 5 at the minute, which on reflection might be a bit generous. I still think I'm between a 4 and a 5. But my goal is actually to be a 7 out of 10 by the end of June. So in 3 months' time. So that's my objectives all in all. I think the biggest takeaway for me is consistency is everything. Even with these YouTube videos, I haven't been consistent. And when I look at my younger brother's YouTube channel, even though he wasn't producing high quality videos to begin with, he just kept showing up, and his subscriber count is built. And honestly, it's been quite inspiring for me. So that's going to be my primary focus. And because I'm doing the right things, or I feel like I'm doing the right things, I really am excited to see what's going to come of the next 3 months. So thank you guys very much for watching. I appreciate this was a much longer one, but there was a lot I felt like I had to explain over the period, and so much that has changed. But yeah, I wish you guys well. If you're following a similar entrepreneurial journey, then best of luck, and I will see you for the next update. Oh yeah, and don't forget to like and subscribe.